One. All right, thanks, Joe, and welcome to AM Coffee. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Daniel Pitts. He's an ordained minister. He has also worked in radio since he was 15 years old, and by my antiquated math, that's been 35 years. That's pretty good. He does a weekly show called Daniel's Elevated Top 10, DE10, DET10, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute. And that's heard all over the country as well as internationally. And it's fantastic to have you on the show, Daniel. How are you today?
Thank you so much. Thank you for this pleasure to be able to be with you here on your radio program here.
Being in radio that long, that's quite a feat. I know it's been off and on a little bit, but a lot of people just kind of walk away from it because it can be frustrating with all the buying and selling of stations and all that kind of stuff. And
It really can. And I was fortunate. I got into radio when I was in college. Long Beach City College had a little local radio station there, and I was able to get involved in that. And I did some Christian music, but mostly I would say it was like pop or whatever. And that actually pretty much, I think, fed my appetite for wanting to get into radio. And I was fortunate enough to get on with Kiss FM, 102.7 Kiss FM here in Los Angeles. And that's home of the Rick Dees. A lot of people in radio know who he was, and
yeah,
very, very fortunate to get on and get under him for a while. And so I'd go out and do some of his entertainment reports. We'd say, oh, we saw this person or that person. I'd go on, and interview different celebrities or whatever we would see out and about. And then I was also part of the street team, so we'd actually go out and we'd put the tent up, and we were the promotions marketing people, but we are also
nice.
on air. So we would be promoting where we're at and be able to talk to the, interact with the different listeners and stuff. So it was a really cool time. I was with them for about 4 years and made some great connections. And one of the things that came out of that is that one of their on-air personalities wanted to do, he was a born again Christian. And he said, he goes, I really want to do a Christian top 10 or top 5, top 20 something countdown. And I was in because, like I said, I like all different type of genres of music, but I really enjoyed the Christian music. And so I said, yeah, let's, so we kind of played around and he did something for a while. I'm not sure how far he went with that, but I did help produce that. But it gave me a taste for this, to think, hey, I could do something like this later. And so, I've done other things, and I just literally came back to that, not actually just this year, a couple of months ago. And I really felt like I needed to get back into Christian radio and actually produce a show. I've done talk radio, and talk radio is great. I love talk radio, love it.
Yeah.
But there's something special about Christian music. And like I said, I love both of them. I love both genres. But Christian music is something I really wanted to do. So I created Daniel's Elevated Top 10. And yeah, we count down the top 10 Christian songs in the nation weekly. So the cool thing about that is we'll also have interviews. And like I said, we'll actually count down those songs. But there's stations that are literally around the world. And I think you were just speaking to this, that have actually picked up this show. So it's not even
cool.
just coast to coast, but
Yeah.
it's literally around the world. And it's funny because, doing this radio thing off and on, you'll come up with different ideas and different shows. And you hope everyone obviously hopes the show takes off, right?
Sure.
If you have no listeners, it's really no good.
Podcasts are different. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but again, and this is the thing, it was not me. Yes, I'm pushing the buttons, obviously, and using my voice and producing it.
Right.
But it was bigger than that. It was God.
Yeah.
And that's something even in my prayer time, when I was trying to launch this, that's in my prayer time with the Lord, he ministered to me and said, and I'll never forget this. I wrote this down and I talk about it as much as I can. He said, we're a team. We're a team. So he gives me the inspiration, because on every single show, I'll have an inspirational point that I'll make. And I'll usually look through scripture, and it's like a little miniature, like little Bible study. Obviously, It's very, very short, because people are not tuning in necessarily to listen to Bible study, but music.
Yeah.
But I'll incorporate that into it. But I get those words from God. I'll ask him specifically, what's the message this week? And so I'll download that and write that down and whatever it is, and then I'll bring it out on the show every single week. So yeah, it's really cool.
That's really cool. You know, I had a similar situation happen to me last year. My best friend from 1984 we met, and he had COPD from smoking all his life, and he died. And so I was
Oh
asked to
wow, I'm
speak at his
sorry.
funeral, and you know, I had just an absolute blank right up until the morning of his funeral. And you know, I told my wife before I went to bed, I said, I have no idea what I'm going to say. I have no idea what I'm going to say. So I remember laying there going, you know, God, you're going to have to give this to me because I have no idea. He was a believer, and that made it a little easier. I suppose you could kind of go on the fly with that. But it was 4:30 in the morning. I will never forget. It woke me out of a sound sleep, telling me it wasn't obviously it wasn't audibly, but this was impressed in my head so very strongly the liar lord the liar lunatic lord thing from it wasn't C.S. Lewis. Who was that? It was C.S. Lewis, I think. I don't know
Mhm.
if you're familiar with that, but you know, Jesus, um, his teachings, you could only come to one of three conclusions: either he's a liar, or he's a lunatic, or he's the Lord. And
Right.
so it was like I came through, and you know, there were supporting scriptures, and how my friend Jesse believed, and it was just it was laid in my lap, and I was fussing over this for nothing for and you know, so I get that. That is just, and
Yeah.
it doesn't happen often enough for me. But I love that it happens for you. This is great.
Yeah, I think those God moments are so important. And this is an important thing too, I think. I think a lot of people think that God only speaks to the big evangelists and the big people on
Yeah,
TV. And of course he speaks to them, but he also speaks
sure,
to you and I. Just little old Daniel, you know, when we're in our prayer time with him, if we open up and listen to him, he'll speak to us. And I've written so many different things. Some of it's not necessarily for the public. Some of it's just
sure.
something that he shared with me. But like I said, I'll never forget it. It just resonated with me so much, that we're a team, and I've never forgotten that. It also keeps you anchored, you know, that it's
Mhm.
not, yeah, it's named after me, but again, I'm the one using my voice and pushing the buttons, producing it, but it's not Daniel's show. It's God's show. This is about God. This is about Christian music. This is about a message that hopefully will go around the world as it's continuing to do, and maybe pick some other ones up as well, to get that message out to maybe someone who's known Christ, but maybe he's walked away, or maybe he's never heard Christ. And they'll turn on that dial. And at that time, they'll be able to hear another message in a different way. Because, you know, contemporary music is Christian music's cool. It really is. It's, you
Yeah.
know, and there's nothing wrong. I love gospel music as well. But Christian music really resonates. And I would hope that maybe someone would keep that dial on a little bit longer to be able to hear that message,
Yeah.
you know?
And it's just funny how that genre does different things. It's like I'm not a modern music person at all. Not even you know, I really not a fan of rap, that kind of thing. But when DC Talk was around back in the late '90s, I mean, it spoke to me. I
Yeah.
used to I loved that stuff. And you know,
Yeah.
Toby Mac, and I've seen Michael Tate in live
Oh,
once
nice.
when he had his band Tate. Wasn't long after DC Talk had broken up.
Okay.
But you know, that kind of music just is that specifically speaks to me. You know, some of the slower stuff, and you know, but yeah, there's something special about it. But
Yeah.
because I really think God can speak through that. You know, if whoever's writing the song is truly plugged into God, then yeah, that comes through, and I think it's in your face, and it's there.
Well, yeah, there's a new song. I just actually premiered it on one of our shows. Gavi, Gawvi, Gavi's the artist, Not Too Far. The lyrics are so, you got to listen to the lyrics. Will just you hang on to them because the message is there. You're never going too far as long as you have breath in your lungs.
Mm,
It's never too far. Never too far. We always have a chance to turn around and run back to Jesus. And that's what the
yeah,
lyrics are of the song. It's not a rap song, but it's definitely contemporary. It's something you would probably hear maybe on one of the pop stations, right? But it's just
right.
it's one of those songs that there's a nice hook to it, and it
Mm,
definitely keeps you entertained into it, and also keeps
yeah.
you engaged.
It's just
So
it's just funny how it reaches across every demographic, and it'll reel you in, you know. So,
yeah,
now you said you worked for Rick Dees. I want to get back to
yes.
your now. What was he like? I've met some celebrities in the past, and some have been fantastic, and some have been very disappointing. What was and you know. You probably don't want to say if it was bad. I
Be
guess I'm
careful.
putting you on the spot.
No, I'm just kidding. He was great.
Yeah.
He was really, really
He
great.
seems like
And
he would be.
he was, I mean, funny, 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 funny. And so what you heard on the radio was truly his personality.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like a dying breed. There's so many different radio, personalities on the radio right now, and they're just literally, they say, here's the next song and push a button, which is fine,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. But he would do these skits, like all the things he would do. It was just hilarious. And you're just sitting here watching it. And that wasn't just like a play or whatever. That was his life. He
Yeah.
was very funny, very humorous. And then in the same studio, the same studio where Kiss was at, he had another division where he did his top 40, Rick D's top 40.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
So
was that at the same time he was doing the AT4 top, or
the
not,
same,
not AT, yeah, that was,
yeah, the
yeah,
top 40, yeah, the Rick D's top
yeah,
40. And so I got to interact with those producers there as well and got to meet with them a little bit. And a lot of this stuff crosses over when you're in
yeah,
the same building.
sure.
You cross over and work with each other and stuff. And so I got to meet some really cool people actually when I was there. But Rick was, I learned a lot from him, and he was definitely a perfectionist. If something didn't sound right, and as you should be when you're at that level, and you have
Absolutely.
that listenership, and you're in the number 2 market, right, in the world, and at
Yeah.
Los Angeles, it's got to be on top of your game. And so he would, even with us, he would coach us and say, yeah, you might have handled, never criticize, but
Mhm.
maybe you could have handled this a little differently this way when you were on the air, or whatever. And you take that. And, if you don't listen to it, then I think it's the book of Proverbs that talks about only a fool, turns away from wisdom, right? And doesn't live and doesn't learn from guidance. And so we always learn. And so, but I learned a lot from him. Um, One funny story. I remember we were going, I believe he was going to one of those record award programs. They happened every, I'm not sure it was Billboard, but it was one of those. And so we were
Mhm.
getting ready. And so this is something that happens a lot in the industry. A lot of people don't know about it. Um, People will wear a little bit of like a concealer, just a little bit, like not major makeup, obviously, but just a little bit of concealer to hide whatever. Whenever
Yeah.
you go into live remotes, or you going into the public like that. So I would be sitting there washing my hands, and he was sitting there in the mirror, just putting a little bit on. It was just the funniest thing because that's what you did. I mean, it
Yeah.
was not weird to see that because everyone did that because you have bright lights on you, you're in the public, and that's just what you did.
Every flaw is
So
seen at that point, so yeah.
correct. And
Yeah.
I'm not talking major makeup, obviously. I just mean
No,
like
I
the
know.
little, like the little
Sure.
concealer stuff or whatever. But it was really, really, really honestly a fun time to work at Kiss. Learned a lot, got to see firsthand. Back in the day, in the studio, they would literally have CDs, and they would have towers, and I would have to go collect all the music for that hour, and I'd put them in order, and then we'd put them in. Nowadays they don't even use that. That's so from the 90s, right?
Yeah.
That's so
Oh,
old
yeah.
fashioned. Everything is digital nowadays, so it's
Well,
totally
I remember
changed.
when I was in radio back in the '80s, everything was on cart, so we didn't even have CDs back then. We actually had 2 turntables in there also. We had 2 turntables, and we had a reel-to-reel that we would record callers when we came in. So,
Yep.
yeah, it was, very, very, man, guys nowadays would probably not have any idea how to work all that stuff, so it was
Yeah,
pretty
well,
neat.
and well, it's funny you said that because they actually were graduating into the CDs from the cart. That's actually what
Yeah,
they had, and they were just doing that transition into the
sure,
CD. So,
sure.
yeah, exactly. And in those days, you really literally ran a board. You had to
Yeah,
know how to run a board.
yeah,
And like you said, I mean, nowadays I think people just have. I mean, that's my setup. I don't have a board. I have a computer and software, and that's how we produce our shows
yeah,
nowadays.
yeah.
So it's a whole lot easier.
I produced one for Great Britain, a 2-hour show, and yeah, I use my Scarlett 2i2 interface and my music library and Audacity, and I put together a whole show, and
Nice.
it's it takes a little while, but when you're putting stuff together, making sure you're hitting the post and everything,
Yep.
but yeah,
Yep.
it's it's a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember back then when you would make a commercial and you had to put it on
Mhm.
cart, because
Mhm.
your board, I think the board we worked with, and I don't even remember what kind of mic it was, and I'm normally kind of geeked out about that stuff, but um, But I think the board had about 25 channels, 23 channels, but we only used about 9 of them. And what, of course, one, it was probably 10 then, because one was the microphone, maybe one was the remote mic for the news guy. And then all the rest of them were for the music cart players and the
Right.
commercial carts. Because
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
had one, you would put a little thing at the end, and I can't remember what you called it, but at the end of the commercial, you would put something on that recording that would flip over to the next one and it would trigger it automatically. So
Okay.
it's like so you could put in 3 commercials, you would have
Mhm.
one song, and then you'd come out of that song and you go to commercial and you hit that first commercial. Let's say you got a 60, 60, 30,
Mhm.
and it would automatically go. So you could run and get a cup of coffee, do whatever you got to do and come back. And by the time it came back, it would play the first song because normally there's just a bumper going in that first song. You had
Right.
probably 10 minutes to go do whatever you wanted to do. So it
Yeah.
was that was kind of neat. I mean, I don't know how it works today, but that was cool. But that was cool.
Yeah, that's definitely cool. And yeah, there's definitely times that you want to go take a break or use a
Sure.
restroom or whatever, but sometimes it's difficult. And the other thing too that's really interesting is, and a lot of people don't know this, when you're listening to any radio station, again, I'm just referring to pop because that's where I was at the Kiss station, but a lot of this stuff's pre-recorded. So like you said, they'll have the
Ah,
caller come in. Hi, interact with the caller. Where are you calling from? What song do you want to hear? What are you doing tonight? Blah, 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 whatever. That's all
yeah,
pre-recorded.
yeah.
Then when you come back from the break, you push play. So you're playing that piece, and then you can go out and go use the restroom or do whatever you need to do.
Ain't
You've
that
you've
something?
got that little buffer there. And
Yeah.
the great thing about that too is you're not going to make a mistake because being live on the radio, you can stutter, you can
Oh yeah.
stumble over things. But when it's pre-recorded like that, and I love that. And there's another personality I used to work for. He's still in Los Angeles. His name's Valentine. Valentine was at Kiss. He also worked in the evening. He's now the morning show at in Los Angeles now currently. So I produced for him as well. But I love that, and I learned a lot from that. I love live radio too,
Yeah.
but I love pre-recorded because if you make a mistake, you can just go right in and edit it out, and no one even knows the difference.
I know, I know.
You
And you
know?
can even edit out your breaths or at least reduce your breaths so it
Oh
it does
yes,
seem to flow a lot better.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
As a matter of fact, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be interviewing a lady named Kendra Raines. She has like 3 different stations she's on in the country,
Mm,
and she does it's called voice tracking for anybody and it's what a lot of smaller stations do. They contract out their DJs, and it sounds like it's a local person because they're saying local things. You get
right.
show up this weekend at the Apple Festival at wherever,
Yeah,
and it's like it's just it's really neat, and
that is
I
neat.
think it neat to kind of get her take on all this and how all that. I mean, we're probably pulling the veil down over something they don't want us to pull the veil down over, but
We
it's
probably
my
are.
show. I'm going to say what I want.
Right. I was going to ask you that. I'm like, can we, because we're not we're saying anything that we shouldn't, but we're showing the magic hand right on the
Yeah,
side, but
yeah,
that's okay.
yeah. But yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people know about it anyway. So I mean, that's how I found out about it. Somebody told me about it. So I mean,
Right.
yeah. Now, did Rick Dees kind of influence how you work, how your DJ style?
A little bit. I like to think that I have a humorous side of me,
Hmm,
but you know what? I've used that with other type of formats and other shows I've done, not for the Christian one. I just really want the Christian radio show to be just the message and then the music.
sure, sure.
It would be easy for me to go another way with it and maybe introduce some of that, but I just don't feel that's really what I want to do right now.
Yeah.
But so yes, he did. I learned a lot from him as far as humor and um, even setting things up where you call someone and play a like some kind of a phone trick or whatever, but it's all being recorded. Those
Yeah.
are really funny. Those are really
Yeah.
fun. But yeah, it was just great to watch such a professional. And I mean, what are the chances and to have that opportunity to work for such a legend?
Oh yeah, he
You
was a
know,
legend. Absolutely.
I mean,
I,
it was just amazing. It was just really, but see, again, God always knows our future and he always directs our path. That was something I know that he got me involved in so I could learn this,
yeah.
so I could learn this for now, for such a time as this, from what I'm doing now with this radio program. I would have no idea how to produce a show and do all that if I had not, been in it
Sure.
and God used that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't know what Rick's beliefs are, and it doesn't matter. But it's like he sets you up to learn from somebody who really, really knew what they were doing and really
Right.
understood how to connect with their audience. And I think that's
Mhm.
what a good DJ does. He learns how to connect with who's listening out there and make it sound like you're talking directly to them. And that's not easy. It sounds like it would be easy, but it certainly is not easy.
It's
Um,
not easy. And in fact, some people, some personalities will even have like a little cutout of people's faces because there, believe it or not, there is a difference when you're just, talking to you're talking and you think you're doing a show. There is a difference when you sound like you're actually talking to people. And I
yeah,
can't even tell you how many people, and Rick Dees is one of them. When I
yeah,
first started, he said, he said, take yourself out of this for a minute. He goes, it sounds like you're just kind of talking. Make it sound like you're talking to people that are actually listening, and the sound changes. I tried it, and it's so funny how it actually changes.
I
It
know.
really does. It's like magic, you
But the
know?
human nature wants us to go back to that reading or
Correct.
and it's just so
Correct.
very difficult because you do voiceover also. I was going to talk about that,
I
but
do.
it's like,
Yes, I do.
and that's one of the basic tenets of voiceovers. Don't make it sound like you're reading a piece of copy. Make it sound
Right.
like you're talking to a friend or you're talking to your parents or whatever. I mean, and it's it's hard to do. I mean, it's sort of like, rubbing the top of your head and patting your belly at the same time. You got all
Right.
that.
Right.
There's a lot going on there. So,
And and I'm still learning. I mean, I think you learn all the time. There's always so much to learn. There's new software that comes out. There's new different things that you can use as far as sound effects. There's always something new that comes
sure.
out. But yeah, you're right. It's sometimes it's a challenge. I think most of voiceover work I've done a couple of companies, big corporate companies, but radio stations, a lot of radio stations. Most for some reason out of Canada has reached out to me, and I've done some voiceover work for them. And then
Oh, great.
some of the even stations that we have now that elevated Daniel's elevated top 10 is on, they've actually asked for me to do voiceover, not even so much for Daniel's. I mean, I've done a little bit for that as well, but
Mhm.
just for their station specifically. You're listening
Right.
to, whatever. And so I've done that as well. But yeah, it's fun. It's just a lot of fun. I love radio. I think
Yeah.
TV's cool, but I've never really had a passion for TV. Where some people are the opposite. They want to be on the camera, and that's
Yeah.
cool. That's their thing. But I've always enjoyed the radio. That's just always been my thing.
My whole joke has always been I've got a face for radio, so that's why I don't do TV. That really
Gosh,
works for me.
I
You know,
probably
it's
have a
funny.
funny sport too.
The internet has kind of opened up so many avenues. Like you said, you do things for things in Canada, which, heck, 20 years ago, that was completely unheard of. That would, unless you had a national commercial going out, you were never going to be on the air in Canada, being in Southern California. And I was going to say that we just did it was probably a month and a half ago. The guy that I work with in Leeds, England, sent me a piece of copy that him and I were going to be talking back and forth. So I had his version and my version, and so I recorded mine, sent it to him, and he recorded his, and then it sent to Thailand, and it was playing on the radio in Thailand.
Oh, well, how cool is
Yeah,
that?
all within 24 hours.
Wow,
That's just to me that like I said, I think I'm a terrible geek at heart because I just think that's just the coolest thing.
that is cool.
So, but,
Well, it's
you've
cool. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, no, go ahead, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was just going to say, I you just spoke to this. The cool thing, and we know that we know we're in the last days. We know this biblically. We are in the last days, and one of those things that we know is that God wants the whole world, right, to hear about the salvation message.
Mhm,
And you just spoke to that. How quick you were able to turn that voiceover around.
yeah,
That's technology. There are how many satellites in the air right now for TV and radio? I mean, we are saturating the world literally. A radio show that I produce here on Wednesday nights and get over to all these stations on Thursday. And then by the weekend, it's broadcasting all over the world to listen to the show. And I've listened to it before. It's kind of funny to listen to it in India. They say it airs Sunday, but it actually airs Saturday night our time. So
of course it
10:30 our
does.
time, Saturday night. I'm listening to our show over there on Sunday. It's
Yeah,
the coolest thing. But see, that's the Great Commission. And that's the cool thing with technology now that we can get this message out. We can get it out. Well, we didn't have that capability,
yeah.
so many years before.
I think at last count that I know, there was 1,500 satellites that was, bouncing signals around all over the planet, and it's just
Yeah.
The coolest
It's
thing.
incredible.
Yeah. Now, you've worked in the music industry also, recording, the music recording industry. Tell us a little about that.
I did. So I had the label manager for I say that three times
If you were a
backwards.
voiceover person, you'd get right through that.
So that's when we hit pause and I go back and edit and then
That's
either
exactly
re-record. I probably have
right.
to re-record it actually. But um, so the label manager with Pioneer Entertainment was tasked to have another division here because they do the electronics, they do the DJ equipment. That's what they've been known for. So they started this in Long Beach actually, and also the 90s. And he knew I, had worked for Kiss and I was acclimated with the dance hits and stuff. And so, do you want to come on? And also with the Christian stuff. And I said, yeah. So I came in and I was one of their directors of marketing and promotions. And so, yeah, we managed various projects. Andre Crouch was one of them. CC Winans, his gift was one of the Christmas albums that we managed that particular album, and that was fun. We would go out and we would have meets and greets all over the place, and they'd be able to meet her. We would book her for different shows and stuff. But I really enjoyed that because I also got to see the other side of it, the record label. When the record is created, then it gets handed off to the radio station. Well, I had just come from the radio station, but I
Yeah.
understood how that works, and rotations, and the more rotations, the bigger the song is a hit, the more you
Mhm.
get paid royalties, and then CSAC and BMI and everyone comes into play. But it was just really cool to see how that all happens and all exchanges together.
Sure.
So, and then also working again with CC One, and she was great. I mean, she's obviously a gospel icon.
I think
And
she's from Georgia here. I live just north of Marietta. I believe she used to sing at a church in Marietta, if I
I
remember
think
right.
she did. I know she's known the Houston family, Whitney Houston. They
Mhm.
very good friends, and they grew up together. And her brother BB Winans
Mhm.
actually were discovered, if you will, on the remember the Jim Baker PTL
Oh, yeah.
show back in
Yeah.
the day. They were part of the choir there. And they
Okay.
started allowing them to do solos, and they're like, "Wow, you have an amazing voice. Who are you?" And it just took off from there. But yeah, and she'll even tell you, Cece will tell you, I was discovered from the PTL, the original
Interesting.
PTL. Yeah, Praise the Lord
Interesting.
program.
Now that's still on, is it not? The PTL? It's just it
Um,
looks different now, but
it looks different. Yeah, he's calling
yeah.
it. I think he's calling it the Jim Baker show. But yeah, they also have like another piece of it, PTL, something they're trying to do something different with it. But
Yeah, I don't, to be honest, I don't watch a lot of Christian TV. I know that we came across something that was called PTL. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and it was nobody I recognized, but I just remember the PTL club that they used to be called. But
yeah, with
yeah,
Tammy Faye and Jim
yeah,
Baker.
yeah. So now you have a beloved German Shepherd named Bella. How does that feed into your yeah?
I
You used
do.
her name, yeah.
I do. Yeah, so we adopted her in 15, I believe, 2015. We adopted her as a puppy, and so we've raised her, obviously.
Yeah.
Um,
She's
but it's
gorgeous,
so.
by the way. What a beautiful dog.
Oh, thank you,
Oh, man.
thank you so much. Yeah, I was. Her dad was a long hair, and her mom was just a regular, not a regular, but a beautiful, short hair, typical German Shepherd.
Sure.
Those two together have made these amazing, beautiful puppies. And we were fortunate enough to get one of them. And we knew right then her name should be Bella, which obviously means beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's what we named her. But she's our pride and joy, and she's big. She's big. She's getting bigger. And but with my production company that I do for DT10 is Isabella Production. So we'll even at the end of every show, that is our production company that we legally have. And so that's the name of it, is Bella the Dog Productions. So we named it after her.
It reminds me of there was a TV show back in the 80s or 90s. At the end, they would just say "Sit, Ubu, sit," and then you'd hear
Yes.
it bark, and it's a good dog. And it
Yes, I do remember that.
when
I don't
I read
remember
the
which show
story, I
that
thought of
was,
that.
but
Yeah, I can't remember either. But anyway, it was an iconic show back then. Of course, my memory. I'm 56. I can't remember anything. So so what's next for Dan? You had a radio show. I don't know if you want to talk about that. You had a radio station, an online radio station. Tell us a little
yes,
bit about that and where we're going to go with that.
I'm hoping that can come back. I felt again that I needed to launch I-10, and that was the name of it, I-10 FM,
Mhm.
and just kind of rolls off your tongue. And that was a Christian-based radio station, 24/7, and it was all talk. There was no music involved in it. It was all talk, and we had an amazing array of talent, and your show was one of them.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was on I-10 FM,
I
and
appreciate
that's
that.
actually, yeah, actually how we met. And it was just a really great local community radio station. And a
Yeah,
few minutes ago, you were saying how like a lot of these stations now are enlisting someone who doesn't even live in that area, but they'll use talking points to say, come out, this is happening in this area or whatever. So it sounds like it's local.
hmm,
Well, that's what we were trying to do. And we are local. I mean, we're here in Palm Springs. So we're here in Palm Springs, California. We're local. So the news, everything we had was local to this area.
yeah.
And I'm sure we'll come back again, but we had to take a hiatus. Um, I had I wasn't well, and I'm not sure what it was. I'm not going to say it was COVID, but I was sick, and so that excuse me, so that, and then also just coupled with the fact that it takes a lot of work to do a radio station.
I would
It
imagine. Yeah.
takes a lot of time because all those shows have to be uploaded and everything. So yeah, I'm sure it'll come back again.
My partner on the other podcast, Tim, he has his own online radio station. He plays a lot of the old stuff, the Dagwood and Blondie type stuff. He
Oh,
plays
nice.
Dragnet, a lot of the old standard radio dramas, and you know, not just dramas, but it was comedies and all that stuff. It's fantastic. But yeah, there's a little trade off of a headache that goes on with that because you know, just like anything else, a computer will crash or a computer will just stop all on its own. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, I get that. So,
for sure.
so what's next for you? Where are you going from here? I know you got this, and hopefully this will take off, and it'll be even bigger than it is now, the DET10. But what's going on after that? Where do you see your future?
Yeah, I really hope this continues to take off. And again, not for me, but it's a ministry,
Of course.
and that God would be able to use this. And I would hope we'd be able to get into more markets, right? Because there's always a radio station that would like to add a show, and if they have the space to do it. And I really see this growing. Again, we've only been around for about 6 months or so. So what's new?
Yeah,
We do receive emails, which is really cool. We'll get emails from places around the world or whatever, and especially the UK. We'll get, hey, listen to your show, enjoyed it, it was encouraging.
that's awesome.
That's what you want to hear, you
Yeah.
know, because again, we're doing this as a ministry, and so I would say that's probably next. I would just hope that continues to grow. Um, who knows what the future has? Hopefully I-10 will come back again. We can relaunch I-10 FM,
Oh, good.
and maybe be a combination between talk and music,
Sure.
because it'd be great to put this program on I-10. But again, we couldn't because we didn't have the music rights to that at that time. We were only set up with, it was Live 365 who was our provider. We were only set up with talk, so
Yeah.
no music. This time around, maybe we can renegotiate that and be able to have music rights as well, so we can
Yeah, that gets
broadcast.
pretty expensive every year. I think there's a fee for the three big music, whatever it is, copyright
Yeah,
places. Yeah,
it can be very expensive. The cool thing with Live 365 is they actually umbrella all that. They have a relationship with Live Set with CSAC, BMI, all the big music houses. They have a relationship. So what happens is when you pay your monthly fee for your airtime,
it's rolled
there
in.
some of that, yeah, is already going toward that. But if you just did it on your own, yeah, it'd be very expensive to do it. So that's a cool thing about Live 365 is that they do offer royalties, so they're paying that, but it's still very expensive. It was, I think, like 65, $70 a month. And that may not sound like a lot, but when you're it can get very expensive
Were you
for
selling
airtime.
advertising in order to kind of cover those costs? Were you?
That was the other challenge. That's what we wanted to do. It was really difficult to reach out to the local community to actually get um, investors to basically, or advertisers to do anything local. And that was part of our plan, was to do that. I just don't think we weren't around long enough for it to really benefit anyone, for anyone to come on and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to invest in that, because we just weren't around that long.
Sure.
But that's definitely part of our business plan. And moving forward, we would need that. A lot of these stations come and go.
Yeah.
I've seen them, and it's sad, because it's expensive. It's airtime is very expensive, and it's not cheap to run a station. But
Now, were you terrestrial as well as being online? You
we were only online.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, we were only online. And that was part of the beauty. We wanted it to make it sound like we were a local, like AM or FM dial. We never said we were, but we made it sound like that. So if you were in the local area, hopefully we'd have people tune in to us and like I said, there was local news. We did the weather, everything to do with Palm Springs or the greater Coachella Valley. So it sounded like you were part of we had local pastors. We have pastors that are here locally that had a program on there. One of our city council members had a program on our station. So it definitely was a community type of a radio station.
I know you're from Downey originally, correct? Is that
Correct. Yes,
yeah?
that's right.
I know there's a Calvary Chapel Downey that the pastor there kind of they record everything and it gets distributed through Calvary Satellite Network, and I don't think it's called that anymore. It's called the Christian Satellite Network. But I know at one time there was some kind of mix up with all that. But anyway, at one time they a lot of the at least Calvary Chapel churches would have 30-minute shows that they would kind of like play one after another. And on certain times of the day, you could count on your favorite pastor coming on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So that would be,
Yeah, for sure.
So,
So,
if
yeah.
I like to kind of finish off these with a question that I don't tell you about ahead of time. If you could go back, say 20 years and talk to your 30-year-old self, pull yourself aside and say, dude, you got to do this. What would you tell him?
Become an airline pilot.
That was not expected. Well, great.
Yeah, I've since a little boy used to watch airplanes. I'd have my dad take us to LAX. There was a little place you could park next to the airport, and we would just sit there and eat donuts and coffee. And well, I wouldn't have coffee, but I
Watch
have
the
donuts
planes.
and
Yeah.
watch the airplanes. And it's something I wanted to do. I'm like, I want to do this. And
Yeah.
there's just something about it. And to this day, I love anything to do with aviation. But that and the other thing I used to do, I would take our tape recorder and I would make um, radio shows. And I'd go to our CB radio and hold the button down for 20 minutes. People love this, right? And I would
Really?
I would play the show until I would let it go, and you'd have everyone cussing at you because there's
Oh, I
truckers and
bet.
everything.
Yeah, you're probably on channel 19 if I'm remembering correctly, right?
I believe so, yes. But I didn't understand the concept of like this whole, it's not a monologue, it's a dialogue. You got to
Yeah.
release and let them talk. And so I'd
Yeah.
hold it down. It was the funniest thing. I'd put 10, 15 minutes. It'd be, who's on the air and cussing in, right? But so that was my first radio show, actually, was a tape recorder and the CB. That was my first radio show.
But you were going out, you might have only had 10 watts, but you were over the air.
I was over the air. That's right.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you and maybe get your show on their radio programs or whatever, on their
Yeah.
platforms, how would they get a hold of you?
Best way to probably would go to our .com, which is www.danielset10.com. And there's all the our Gmail, all the phone numbers, information's all there on our website. So danielset10.com.
And there's contact info on that. If they want to send you an email,
Yes.
they could do it. That's fantastic, man. You've been a great guest. I appreciate you coming on. This is
Well, thank you for
fascinating.
having me on here.
Like I said, we kind of like peel the veil back a little bit, maybe more than we should have, and but I think people are interested in this kind of thing. I know I always was when I was a kid. And
Yeah.
it reminded me of something that I was kind of disheartened. I think I was 10 years old, and I called a radio station. It was right when FM. I'm just a couple of years older than you are, but when FM kind of really blossomed as top 40 music, AM used to kind of dominate, and then FM was always the old people music, the Lawrence
Right.
Welk stuff,
Yep.
and then once it started playing the popular music, I called the radio station. You could call and make a request, and they would actually play it. And I called, and he said, "Okay." He goes, "Could you do me a favor?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "I want you to say," and he gave me, "Could you play?" And it seemed like it was Man, I can't remember what the song is. It's sort of like on the tip of my memory, but I can't remember. But he had me fake a request, and I'm like, okay, and so I faked the
Yep.
request, and it was about 20 minutes later I heard it, but, the satisfaction was shot. I didn't like it.
Right.
You didn't like your own voice back then anyway, but it was fake, and I'm thinking and then once I got working in radio, I worked at a, morning radio show, and the guy there would always say, "It's not real, it's radio." And
Yep.
and that kinda brought me back to that 10-year-old kid and
Well,
thinking
it's so funny you said that because that's the other thing that we did for the Rig Dees, the top 40 show.
yeah,
Remember, it's all pre-recorded.
yeah.
So they would have me go into another room, change my voice, or maybe use my same voice, and they would do a little bit of editing. I would go literally in the next room and say, "Hi, this is Joe from Idaho, and I'd like to hear."
Oh
It
my
was fake
gosh. Oh
because
my gosh.
not that you didn't get calls, but you get calls and you can have a stack of voice messages that why would you, you know what I'm saying? I mean, sometimes you try
Yeah,
to get to them if you can, but the show's already been recorded. It's already been set up. You're working literally on the next week's show. So
right,
whatever was the week before is not even relevant. So it's hard to say, it's not live radio, it's pre-recorded.
of course.
So that was one thing that we used to do. And same thing, I learned that, okay, this is fake.
It's
This is
all
fake.
fake.
Then when I worked in live radio in the nighttime with Valentine, even with Rick Dees in the morning, yes, the lines would all light up, and those were well people. But here's the thing that people don't realize: you're probably not going to hear your song because there's this thing called a playlist that the
Yes.
program director has already the songs that he or she wants played within that hour. So you can write it down and say, sure, we'll get to that. And if it's a popular song, they're going to hear it, but it's not because they requested it. It's just
Right.
because it happens to be already on the list.
If they're
So, but
asking for
they
Delta Dawn from
correct.
1974, they're not gonna get that.
Correct. So, but they leave feeling special, going, "Oh my gosh, look at my songs that I just requested this," and it
Yeah,
had probably nothing to
yeah.
do with the request; it was
Like
already on the playlist. But
right, right.
so yeah, it's fun. I radio. It's really fun, and you're right. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that people
There
don't
really
even
is,
know.
and, I'd hate to get off track because I was just fixing to close this up, but it's like, I remember when we had, it was a morning show, so it's like when the news guy was running late, so
Mm-hmm.
we would always have, a song from the Box Tops called "The Letter." And the
Mm,
letter from the box tops was 1 minute and 57 seconds. And I remember having that cart at my right side because I was the board operator. And, and,
right.
and when I would kind of do everything and send everything over to him, shift everything to where it needed to be. But if I knew that he was running late, I'd have that cart all ready to go. And
Right.
it's like, he's not coming in. He's not coming in. And so,
Yep.
and so it'd be like, news is coming up in just a minute. And then I'd hit that. And it's like, oh my gosh. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
just so
Yeah.
fake. We probably played that song twice, 3 times a week. So what are you gonna do?
Funny.
But it was funny. Daniel, I appreciate that you've been a great guest. I appreciate you coming on.
Oh,
We will
thank
do
you.
this again. Once you get, like, saturated nationwide, we will bring you back.
Okay. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Daniel Pitts, and his email or his, website is, again?
DanielsET10.com.
danielset10.com. Well, thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Daniel.